tell us about the time we faced.
All right. Well, as I remember.
At Avenger headquarters.
Because united, the Avengers are strong.
Welcome to the Marvel D&T Evolution podcast with myself, Andy Stead.
And I'm Jarian Gibson.
And I'm Alex Stroh.
And I'm Jamie Smith.
Superb. Good to see you all, lads. Good to see you. I know that Alex and Jarian done a live on Friday talking about the news and a few bits and pieces there. I actually didn't catch that one. I hope it went well. Did it go well, Jarian?
We had some hiccups. We had to relaunch the stream, but the second one went well. I think we did good, and hopefully no hiccups today. Fingers crossed, because I'm traveling at my sister's, and hopefully the internet stays well while we're doing this today.
Yeah. And do you know what, though? That's a perfect segue into this sort of piece and this show today. So this show, hi Lisa, we can see you. How you doing? So this show today is our 1 year anniversary. This has been 1 year since we've been doing it. And when we started podcasting at RMC, how you doing, mate? I can see you. When we started podcasting, I remember doing some research into it and sort of saying, what's the key to success? And everyone just says consistency. Keep doing it. Keep putting the shows out. And I think what you just said there, Jarian, about the fact that you're traveling, that you're at families today, but you're still here, you're committed to it, and we're doing it. I think that goes to prove the point, doesn't it? And then obviously some of the things that have happened in the last sort of year since we've been doing it. Alex has come on to be, a host. Jamie's been guesting here. We've always had people, whether I haven't been able to do it, you guys have been stepped up and filmed the show anyway. So I think that's the point, which point we're trying to make. I think consistency has been absolutely key. I don't know what you guys think about it, Jamie, especially from your point of view. Obviously, listened more than hosted. I mean, has it been like being on both sides of that sort of the screen as such?
Sometimes you like when I enjoy doing it, but I also enjoy miss like just sitting back and being able to type in. I miss that interaction as well. And even I won't listen to myself back. I'm not, what I mean? I don't know if you guys listen to the podcast back to yourself speaking. No, but I also miss like Monday morning. Oh yeah, I've got a podcast to listen to. I miss that as well. But I also enjoy the live aspect of it too. You've got about both. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, there's definitely that kind of. I know what you're saying. Was it? I think it wasn't last week. Was it last week where I was on? I wasn't on the Saturday, and you guys recorded on the Saturday, and I could make some comments, and I quite enjoyed that. I thought, it's quite fun. It was nice to not be here, But on the other hand, I know what you're saying, and I think talking about that as well. Since we've taken the show live, it's so cool that we can have that interaction with our members. I really enjoy that. I know, like having that live Alex, like having that live feedback with members is that's pretty cool, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoy it. One of the things that I think has been awesome about being live is the fact that there's been times where we won't know an actor's name, an actress's name or something, and we'll be talking, and literally somebody in the audience will just kind of just be like, oh, here you go. Like, this is what it is. And we'll be like, oh, yeah, that's exactly what it is. So they're literally a part of the podcast. You know what I'm saying? Like, all the group members, everybody who comes in live, like, they are literally a part of this too.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. I love that. Yeah, like you said, I think when we started this off, when it was pre-recorded, I think we'd said that we wanted it to be an interactive thing between us as sort of the admins of this group and our members. But I don't ever think we tried, didn't we? We did try and do that kind of thing where we remembered posts and things that people had said throughout the week and kind of repeated them on the podcast. But again, if that person's not listening, it wasn't quite the same. It was never really a two-way conversation, is it? And I think now it really is a two-way conversation.
Most definitely.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that obviously Jarian, I know you always keep an eye on the comments and you're highlighting comments all the time. So you're almost like that link between everybody that's watching it and then like us. And I know that you sort of pick things out and go, I just want to highlight this one. So that must be really cool for you too, being that kind of like almost like middleman between everybody that's watching and then like usually just me and Alex and today Jamie, you know. So that must be cool as well.
Yeah, it is. And, you know, just to go back on what Jamie was saying about the podcast on Mondays, RMC is the same way. You know, he used to listen to work all the time. And then as far as the live interaction, you know, he says, you know, the live interaction definitely has a bigger, better vibe. And good point, Alex. And like, I like it. You know, I love it. Like, I'm like the guy in the chair right now, you know, making sure the stream's going, watching the chat. And we always love the interaction, you know, no matter what it is, you know, that's why we highlight the comments on here. And then we talk back to those who are listening to us live.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And hi, Roxy as well. Roxy's there. And we can do stuff like that as well, you know, say hi. We know who's listening and when they're listening. So that's really cool. No, I really like that. And
look at Ruben's on too. Morning. Probably morning for him.
Yeah, he did say it was going to be very early for him. Yeah, he did say. Yeah, morning, Ruben. How you doing?
Morning.
Yeah. So talking about that, obviously, like the podcast has evolved over the last year. I think we're up to about 60 odd episodes now. So, you know, we've been regularly churning out episodes. Thank you, Ruben. Yeah, happy anniversary. Thank you very much. So we've been regularly churning out episodes, but I think part of the what's he saying? It's almost 7 a.m. Almost, as he says, up early morning. Yeah, so part of what's made this podcast successful is the fact that we've had guests on. And Jamie, well, actually, our special guest and Alex as well. Alex has sort of gone from a guest into regular host, and Jamie's gone from a guest into, you know, regular guest host, and you know, we've had some great guests on in the past, and it would be impossible to get them all on today. We have got a couple of surprises for you, but we've also Jarian's been busy this week, creating a little video. So. Should we go ahead and play that video and then we can have a little look at that?
Yeah, but before I do it, I was going to give a shout out to RMC. I do a spin in the chair, but I can't because I'm wired up right now and everything's come crashing down. But I would definitely do a spin in the chair if I could. But yeah, let's go ahead and get to the video here and let's you know, some of our guests in the past year.
What's up, you filthy variants? I can't believe it's been a whole year already. That's absolutely insane to me. I mean, it really feels like just yesterday we were starting that, but I cannot be more proud at how far you guys have taken this and how well you guys have done with it, you know? But, yeah. And I'm Jason Cutter, the man, the myth, the legend. Happy anniversary, boyos.
What's up, Marvel D&T Evolution Podcast? This is Steve Honeycutt, the creator of Escape to Earth from Reptilian Media. And I just want to say congratulations on your 1-year anniversary. And thanks for having me on, and I look forward to coming back. Excelsior!
Hey, I'm Paul Scardino, the pop enthusiast, 2-time Guinness World Record holder for the largest Funko Pop collection. And I just wanted to wish my friends over at the Marvel D&T Evolution podcast congratulations for reaching 1 year. So congrats on the 1-year anniversary. Keep up the great work. Love the show and the Facebook group, and I'm looking forward to many more years to come. Congratulations, guys.
Agree or disagree? This is the best Marvel podcast ever.
Hi, I'm Mark Relaford from Flagstaff, Arizona, and I've really enjoyed being on the podcast, not once but twice, and also enjoy listening to it as often as it comes out. Congratulations on being a year in, and here's to year 2.
Hi guys, Luke here from Hydra Collectibles, wishing you all a very happy anniversary. I cannot believe that you guys have made it this far while still maintaining that high quality content. It's no easy feat, and this is something that you guys should be very proud of. I am also very thankful for all that you guys do for the community, both with the podcast and of course with the Facebook group. I'm also very thankful that you allow me to share my content on a weekly basis when it fits in with the MCU. So thank you very much. As for the future, I can't wait to see what you guys do, and I can't wait to come back and talk more Spider-Man. So once again, huge congratulations on this huge achievement. Can't wait to see you soon. Take care.
Hi everyone, it's Paul at DC World here in the UK. Congratulations to D&T Evolution. Happy anniversary, your first year. Absolutely amazing, and glad to have been on as well. Hope to be back soon. Congratulations, guys.
Hey guys, RMC here. Just wanted to thank you guys for having me on the podcast. And congratulations to you guys, Andy, Jarian, Alex, 1 year with the podcast. Look forward to them every week, and I appreciate all the work you guys put in. Appreciate you having me on. Look forward to doing it again sometime. Cheers, guys.
Hi there, Tom here from Stepping Through Film on Facebook. Just want to say a huge congratulations to Andy and the whole team at the Marvel D&T podcast for 1 whole year of film, awesome Marvel stuff. And yeah, just keep on doing awesome work.
Hey guys, I just wanted to say congratulations for 1 year of podcast. I can't even remember the first one. You guys have done amazing throughout the year. All the hard work you put, everything, all the members that participate, all the guests you guys bring. Thank you so much. And I'm pretty sure in another year we're going to be celebrating again. So keep up the good work.
Ah, how awesome was that?
That was awesome.
That was great, wasn't it? How good was that to see all of those guys there in quick succession? All the people that we've had on the show, or nearly all the people that we've had on the show.
Hey, the quick thing, real quick. Jason Cutter just messaged me. He's watching about his band again, so he said hello.
Nobody's surprised at that comment.
You should just say when he's not banned. That's the
Yeah, that was really cool. Paul's there, and he said, "Amazing, thank you." Yeah, Lisa's loved it, Roxy's loved it, Ruben's loved it. Yeah, I mean, you know what? I think that just highlights some of the really cool episodes that we've had. I mean, going back and looking at things, Steve Honeycutt. The Escape to Earth, he created his own comic, and he's getting that, trying to get that published and going through funding for that. Just interesting people that we've had on. Steve was really a really cool guy, wasn't he? Because I think even by his own admissions, he kind of said, actually, I'm not a massive fan of the MCU, but he was just a massive fan of Marvel. He was really interesting, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I also love the Excelsior he threw in at the end of his video. That was awesome. Yes. It was perfect. But yeah, Steve's an awesome guy. And I want to say this about like everybody that made a video. Everyone has been a great guest, and every guest that we've had has been fantastic, and everyone is completely different, and they've all been different in their own ways, and they brought so many different things to the podcast.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think that's a really good point, actually. Everyone's brought something different. Mm-hmm. And that's the whole point. We don't want the same guests on every week, like the same type of guest on every week. You know, you look at the range of people that we've had. We've had people that are other admins in the same way that we are. We've had a world record holder. Mm-hmm. We've had a world record holder on our show. I think that's really, really cool. I'm so pleased with that. So, thank you, Paul, for coming on. We've had, Paul Edwards from DC, talking about DC stuff. That was really cool. And he's sharing his experiences with the Batman and his excitement about that. So that was great. And, RMC and Barbs and Mark, people that are just fans like us coming on and talking about their own interests within the MCU, and Tom from Stepping Through Film, his stuff has just rocketed now. He's at film premieres. He's been traveling all over the world. That video was from a hotel room somewhere because he's now getting so sought after to do his stuff. I mean, that's fantastic. When we started it wasn't our fault. It wasn't our I was not taking credit. I'm not taking credit. Tom's awesome. But, you know, when we had a conversation with him, it was still sort of picking up, wasn't it? And now it's great. It's great to see. Has anybody got anything else they want to say about those guests that we've just seen?
Yeah, you know, I agree with the chat here, and I'm not, the names I coming across, so I can't see who said this, but I agree. I love Tom's work. Always excited to see his pictures out there of how he's lining those up to real life and locations and so forth. So I echo what Alex said. You know, a variety of guests all bring something special, all good guests, and look forward to having more too as we continue.
Yeah, for sure. We've got some interesting people in the pipeline, you know, and different people to do with collectibles, different people to do with film, artists, all sorts of different people. Obviously, you have to line up. We have to line up, you know. And actually, I think, to be fair, we deserve a pat on the back because we're in different time zones, we've got different things going on, and we keep, you know, we line up, you know. And I think we do deserve a little pat on the back for that. Right. So we're not going to just leave all our guests to be on video. We've got a couple of people coming on live, and the first one is going to be coming on any second now. So, Jarian, is he in the waiting room?
Not yet. I don't see him there yet, so can't have him yet.
All right, not yet. He's he'll be here in a second. So, look, we've got two guests lined up today. First of which is going to be on any second now. We're going to chat with him for about 15 minutes, and then we've got another guest that we're going to chat with for the rest of the show. Two different themes, although they do overlap. So it'll be interesting. Jarian, give me a nod when he is there, because he's just giving me a thumbs up.
I'll do my my favorite thing to do in here. Oh, here we go.
Oh, here we go. Here it goes.
Hey,
hi guys.
There's Martin. How are we doing, Martin? All right?
Not too bad. It's lovely to see you all.
Yeah, you too. So for anybody that's watching and that doesn't know Martin, or listening and doesn't know Martin is I've coined him as the Marvel Professor. I know he's going to go bashful and sort of won't like that. But Martin, just briefly introduce yourself and who you are, you know, the book, what you do, just for anybody that doesn't know you that's listening or watching.
Sure. So I'm Martin Flanagan. I work at the University of Salford in Manchester in England. And in 2016, along with my co-authors, Andy Livingston and Mike McKenney, we put a book out, which we think is the first book on Marvel Studios. Maybe not the first book on the MCU sort of phenomenon, but it was definitely the first book on Marvel Studios as a business. And it's called Marvel Studios Phenomenon. And ever since then, I've continued to work on various aspects of Marvel, and actually spoke with the two other guys before tonight, so they've got a little bit of input into anything I say, so crediting them quite correctly. And so that was 2016. It came out in paperback in 2017.
Excellent. Oh, so you've spoken to the other guys, so you're fresh with some information.
Yeah, I said I need backup here, guys. Short of getting them to actually be in the podcast, which they've not so far signed up to. They gave me some input.
That'd be really cool. We'll have to get all.
I'll keep asking them. Don't worry, I'll keep asking them.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So Martin, we've got about 15-20 minutes to have a chat, because we've got another guest coming on after you. And we discussed about what we might want to talk about, and we've not chatted to you for about 6 months or so. No, it's not been quite that long, has it?
Yeah, about 4, I think. Yeah.
I think it has. It was the beginning of the year, wasn't it? Yeah. So, and a lot's happened since then. And we spoke to you the last time about themes in the MCU and about genres and things like that. And I think it was Alex that I think it was you that coined the transition theme, wasn't it, Alex? I'm not sure. It might have been.
Maybe.
Take some credit. Go on, take some credit. But one of us, maybe someone on the group, coined the theme of transition, of Phase 4 of the MCU being about transition. I think one of our admins, Dave, put up a great image the other day, and I know Jarian questions the lineup, but it was basically a new Captain America, a new Hawkeye, a new Black Widow. Yeah, great, and you know, whether that ends up being the team or not, the point is we have transitioned from one to the other. I mean, I don't know, what are your thoughts from the Marvel Professor in regards to transition? What are you thinking? What are you seeing?
Well, first of all, thanks for asking me back. And I've not seen Jamie before, so hi, Jamie. And yeah, I mean, well done for a year of the show as well. It's great that you continue to do it with such enthusiasm and you know, real knowledge as well. My co-authors can't quite believe that you expose yourself to so much news and theories about this. Therefore, spoiling so much for yourselves when your future variant sits in front of you for the first time. So yeah, transition. So the big transition of your year of doing the show, I guess, has been you know, the start of the Disney Plus shows, and I suppose that was always to be expected. But what was kind of maybe more you know, contingent was that the MCU theatrical movies came back. So I mean, you know, like in 2021, we sort of started to get theatrical movies again. So yeah, I have been thinking about transition a little bit, and I mean, I'll come back to the kind of, to speak to your point about the post with the new Avengers team, possible new Avengers team. You know, all the MCU TV shows have had some sort of element of passing on the mantle. I mean, that's kind of, you know, probably spoken about that at sort of various points of thought about it. So sort of come back to that later. But yeah, I mean, speaking outside the narrative for a minute, because I'm always interested in, I've devoted a fairly big chunk of the conclusion of the book actually to sort of discussing how Marvel weaves in sort of stuff about its own story, really. You know, like the kind of self-reflexive thing, the kind of the story of the studio into its own, into the texts. You know, I chatted a bit with Mike and Andy, and we were talking about, you know, a lot of new creative talent coming on via these shows. And I think we may be, you know, going to see some of the showrunners and some of the people who've kind of come on as writers, maybe filling some kind of more important roles later now they've kind of become established, and some of the people seem to be on the way out. You know, James Gunn maybe is on his way out. He seems to be being a bit cryptic about it at the moment. In terms of the texts, it kind of reminds me a little bit of the mid-2010s period, where you've got kind of different ways being employed to build a bigger sort of narrative feel. So you had kind of like the kind of, you know, you had the transition from Winter Soldier to the next Captain America film being essentially, as we've spoken about before, I remember, you know, essentially a team film, or maybe even two teams, you know, and, you know, whatever works, they'll sort of put in whatever works. So some stories seem to be unassociated and other stories seem to be ultra associated to the main spine, and then you don't realize how some things build in until later. So for instance, with Moon Knight, you know, Moon Knight felt relatively isolated, but you know, whereas Falcon and Winter Soldier of like a year before grew straight out of the end of Endgame. But then Moon Knight also felt quite new in some areas. You know, the scope of it, the budget maybe sort of seemed a bit higher. It involved sort of bigger set pieces. You know, you couldn't necessarily see all the kind of you know, going into the sort of the dimension of the gods sort of stuff in the sort of episode 4 or 5 sort of coming at the beginning, because it was quite grounded. But, you know, even just on a kind of global level, it had that slightly James Bond feel to it. I know they shot a lot of London in Hungary or somewhere like that, I think, but had that kind of James Bond feel to it. So you've got, again, you know, you've got these kind of different feels to sort of each sort of line that's kind of shooting out. Now, I just wanted to say something about No Way Home in a cinematic way. I don't think there's much more to say about it. It was such a kind of a enormous success, and I actually remember back in January, one of you guys was like, "Well, No Way Home's done now, so what's next?" You know, so it's like this kind of rapacious hunger for sort of, you know, gets all that incredible stuff in 2 hours, and then you're like, "Okay, I really enjoyed that. Okay, so what are we getting next?" But it was you know, it was the Sony sort of censored version of this same multiversal trend that we've been experiencing. And when I look back at it now, though, I've not seen it for the second time, so I need to buy it really and watch it again. But the more it looks like, you know, Doctor Strange and Wong and even Matt Murdock, weirdly, given that he wasn't exactly Marvel Studios, you know, heart of Marvel Studios, you know, we're in there to anchor it to, you know, Marvel Studios properties in a way that sort of, you know, it featured so many Sony characters and so many kind of Sony Spider-Verse characters. But I actually think the cooperation between those two on it, Sony and Disney, has really been historic. You know, I think it's difficult to think of precursors that not only blended not only blended film series, but blended franchises. And then actually studios had to blend and work together on it as well. So I think I think we've probably underestimated how important that is, so far, that kind of cooperation. And I suppose it opens up the idea that, we just had Top Gun Maverick coming out this weekend, sort of what looks like some pretty major success. I suppose it opens up the idea to other, potential cross-franchises, cross-studio franchises. But I think the level of success it had, and I'm not keeping track of time here, please, so tell me if I go too long.
Carry on.
The level of success it had was a huge bellwether for Hollywood because of the pandemic. Because, not that many of the big films released in 2021 you could really take as an accurate, sort of measure of how successful things were going to come out of the gate. So if you look at the top 4 US domestic grossing films last year, it was No Way Home, Shang-Chi, Venom 2, Black Widow. And then I think you got Fast and Furious and Bond, and then it was Eternals. So I think only with No Way Home could you really sort of say, yeah, that's either exactly as successful as I expected it to be, or it's way more successful. With all the others, they were less successful, I think it's fair to say. Even Bond, even Fast and the Furious, they were all kind of in comparison with their kind of franchise. So No Way Home proved that thing that I often see box office analysts say, which is that, if the film is good enough, if the film is exciting enough, if the property is exciting enough, then people will come out, whatever. And I think Top Gun is proving that again this week. And also that timing is everything. No Way Home's timing was fairly accidental. I think it was supposed to come out in July 2021 originally. So it was actually only 5 months late, which is, for a kind of film being made during the pandemic, was pretty fluky, I think, that they kind of got so close to their kind of stated release date. So now I've got a few thoughts about Doctor Strange, which I'll try and put into transition terms as well. So I think, certainly transition, but I think tradition within it as well. I mean, I heard your episode last week, or a couple of episodes ago, where you kind of did the debrief of Doctor Strange, and there was some real excitement about the Illuminati, which I completely shared, and the honouring of previous appearances. The fact that even stretched to Black Bolt, who had a kind of undignified exit, but it was lovely seeing it. It was lovely seeing him there, and there's sort of two ways of looking at that. It's either kind of really honouring, really committing to fan service, or it's kind of huge refusal to acknowledge that you've done anything wrong. Unpopular.
I didn't look at that second way of that. That's great.
Yeah, and so kind of low in kind of acclaim. But then we also had Reed Richards, which is a big thing for me, and that is real old school Marvel honouring the old guard, and another thing that struck me about Doctor Strange, it's a bit of a side issue because I don't think anybody watching or listening to this today is going to be one of these people, but I think it must be the first feature that's impossible to watch if you haven't seen any previous MCU features. I mean, for a while I thought that about Endgame. I think in Endgame they do kind of recap a little at the beginning, but I think you'd be so kind of lost with. So if anybody wandered into the multiplex kind of thing, who's not kind of a superhero literate or Marvel literate, I think they'd have really struggled. There was lots from after in terms of comics. There was lots from after the 2000s in there, like America Chavez, Incursions, Marvel Zombies, which I think is a 2000s phenomenon, but also lots from the 70s. The Darkhold had a serious role. Matt Wundagore, which I was also. I think Alex said he was excited to see. I was really excited to see Matt Wundagore. So there are no hard and fast rules, I think, about where the kind of which decades the material is going to come from. It's not like kind of now they've started to catch up on 2010 onwards, that they're not going to kind of keep going back and mining those themes. They're not going to be able to be as chronological as the Marvel Universe has been in comics, but they'll kind of piece these things together, which of course they're going to have to do because to feature the Fantastic Four, you need to loop back somewhat. That they're never going to predate Captain America in the MCU, but there's going to be a way of having them, have their kind of classic role, I think. Again, I think it's the see what works thing. We've got the TV, and I think Marvel's saying we've got the TVA, we've got the multiverse. We'll find a way. I wish they'd have really properly mentioned the TVA. It bugged me a little bit, but then I think there's a bit of discussion, isn't there, online about Reed's entrance and kind of Reed maybe coming through a TVA type portal. And then, because I feel like I've been going on for a while, the last thing I'm going to say is I think Doctor Strange kind of really proved the validity of What If. So, you know, like we have to watch What If really carefully.
Yep.
And, you know, it kind of gave that show a new authority. I mean, I went back and watched, you know, the Doctor Strange episode, and I watched the final episode again after Multiverse of Madness. I think it really kind of feels now more. I was like, I just breezed through this a bit the first time, and not only did I kind of pick up on more stuff, but I just found it much more compelling. I think it's funny how that kind of, you know, if you make it a bit canon with the live action world, it sort of makes you look at it in a more serious way. And I kind of felt that that's something that, like, you know, we're going to take away from Multiverse of Madness. And What If is an important show, I think.
Wow. Well, I tell you what. So you said about you going on a little bit there, but I listened to every word you just said. I listened to all of it. It was great, and I don't know. I joke about it, but the Marvel professor. But that was a university lecturer giving us a lecture in 10 minutes on everything.
I mean, it would never be as interesting as that. If it was a real lecture, it'd never be as interesting as that. But yeah, I mean, the only other thing I've got down here in the notes that I didn't mention is like I think I may have said Disney Plus, the opportunity Disney Plus gives to you guys were talking in one of your episodes about, like, will Wanda, or maybe on the page about will Wanda be able to be redeemed? And I think that thing of now it's been established that characters can kind of have their storylines resolved in other people's titles, sort of thing. I wonder if titles will get less important. You know, I may have said before that, like, I could sort of envision a Disney Plus show that was like a bit of a Marvel Studios Presents, and I still feel that now. You know, I kind of feel like you could have a cosmic version of that, and you could have a kind of an Eternals based version. You could have, you know, this and that, and you know, they're never going to be able to change anything about the way the movie industry uses titles. So I'm sure we'll always have a Captain America strand, and we'll always have a, you know, a Spider-Man strand. But it sort of doesn't feel. I've been rereading the Immortal Hulk recently for something that I'm working on, and when that comic run really got into its stride, the state of the Hulk was so established that you could have an issue that the Hulk hardly featured in. And I think we're kind of almost getting to that now, you know, with this kind of really rich universe where the characters, you don't always need, you know, there is no Iron Man there anymore, but, you know, you don't always need that kind of like top level character to be present for the story, for the ongoing story to continue, which, you know, must give Marvel Studios a lot of opportunities, really, because they don't have to always have a Hemsworth or an Evans or a, you know, Tom Holland, you know.
Yeah, and it gives you. I mean, going on exactly that point. Look at Book of Boba Fett. You know, we gave ourselves a preview, or they gave us a preview of what Din Djarin was doing before we get to season 3. So they haven't got to worry about reminding us what he's been doing. We're ready to go.
And that's right. Yeah,
came in somebody else's show, and I like the way you were saying about the okay, this might be a Captain America movie, but that doesn't mean we can't tell a little bit of story about Hawkeye, and this might be a Doctor Strange movie, but we've got a big chunk of development devoted to two other characters here, and you're not really watching, you know, the sequel to what was the previous movie that came out before Multiverse of Madness. It was No Way Home, wasn't it? The sequel to No Way Home is Multiverse of Madness. And the sequel to Multiverse of Madness is Miss Marvel, and the sequel to Miss Marvel is Thor: Love and Thunder, and the sequel to Thor: Love and Thunder is, do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Go on, Alex.
Oh, I was just going to say, I love the mention about titles, too, because I was sitting here thinking about, like, Captain America, the Winter Soldier, and I was like, I wonder if when they put that movie out, if they ever thought that they would ever down the line make, like, a Falcon and the Winter Soldier. You know, like, that character really became popular after that movie, because he was more of an antagonist in that movie, and then he kind of slid into that, like, really
Yeah.
popular, like across the internet, across everywhere. So like, yeah, I could see like how the titles really don't matter in the end, you know?
Yeah, I mean, how many shows have we got now that have been about a villain or a reformed villain or a kind of former villain like Hawkeye, in comics anyway, former villain like Hawkeye, reformer villain like, a former bad guy like Ant-Man. I mean, it's like, it's very fluid like that. And Wanda has been, sort of misunderstood. Well, villain, then kind of misunderstood, then really heroic, then misunderstood again, and now pure sort of then a pure villain again, sort of in some ways. So I mean, it's kind of there's this acknowledgement of this fluidity. But I mean, I don't think they will do something like Marvel Studios Presents. I just think it will kind of feel like that. But I do think that strangely brings things closer to comics as well. As I said about the Immortal Hulk, but even like early Fantastic Four, when Wakanda is properly introduced in Fantastic Four, the camera kind of goes off the Fantastic Four for ages, in the comic. So I think it's a little bit like that, but it's been an exciting period, and you guys picked a great year to launch, I think, because there's just been so much more text to talk about, because of the sheer amount of Disney Plus stuff.
Just something you just brought up there, just lastly, we've got to move on in a minute, but something that you brought up there about Wanda's journey so far, which isn't over. Nope. It reminded me of when I used to watch professional wrestling with a wrestler, because they go from heel to face, and they they have these transitions, and you start seeing this character doing things that's not quite who The Rock was. Like, why are people now starting to boo him, and then why is he acting like that? And then all of a sudden he then becomes a villain, and then he's a villain, and he's a proper villain, and then he starts kind of reforming again, because then he'll help a goodie out, and then he's a face again, and then he's a heel again, and it's kind of ebbs and flows, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's like kind of, that's a good comparison to wrestling. I think it's like, even though we're dealing with superhero powered people so much, I think, if you think about it, the people who are cause problems in your life or make great things happen in your life, they don't go away, do they? They're always there. Mm-hmm. And I mean, kind of like, sometimes they're causing problems, and sometimes they're helping to make sure everything's great. And you're doing that in other people's lives too. So I think I think that helps humanize it, really.
Yeah.
I know it's controversial. I know it'll be difficult to see, how Wanda kind of comes back from this. And I think sometimes maybe the writers of some shows don't thank the writers of other movies for leaving characters in certain places, but there must be some ongoing enormous Bible that Kevin Feige's got locked in his basement. That's just like people, isn't it? That happens with people. They stick around.
Yeah, certainly. Martin, look, it's been great chatting. Well, I say chatting. It's been great being schooled.
Yeah,
it's been great being schooled. Honestly, that was excellent. And I know, like you said, you felt like you spoke for most of it, which you did. But you had. I heard every word of it. Personally.
You made really good points. You really did.
Good. Yeah, really good stuff.
Well, good luck with your anniversary show, and keep going. It's a great show.
Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us, Martin. We'll certainly catch you again in another few months and have you back on to give us another schooling, mate.
Yeah, great.
Thanks very much, Mike.
Right.
Thank you.
Bye, guys. Yeah. Bye.
Wow, like
right.
Well, that goes back to what Alex said about all the guests bring different things, and I think there's some guests you want to put things back and forth with, but like some Martin there, you're quite happy to just sit and listen to what he's got to say, because there's so much there, and you just want to sit and take it all in, sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, totally RMC and those from the group all say thank you, Martin. So if you're still listening, thank you for coming on, and really appreciate the insight and, as Andy says, the schooling.
Yeah, definitely. So that was fantastic. Brilliant. We've got another guest coming on. Hopefully he's ready for us.
Yeah, he's there.
He's there. Coming in. Let's get him in.
All right, here we go.
What's going on, guys? Happy 1 year anniversary, and congratulations.
Monty, Harry, how you doing, my friend?
Doing wonderful. Thank you for having me, as always.
You're very, very welcome. Good to see you. So we've just been just been chatting to Martin.
I saw. I was watching. Yeah.
Yeah,
Great stuff.
It was interesting. So what and as you know, we chatted to Martin about transition, and part of that transition is the transition of these relatively unknown characters. I wouldn't say relatively unknown to the sort of mainstream, I guess.
The mainstream, yeah.
Yeah, from the comics, they've transitioned now into the MCU. We know you're a big comics man. We know you've got a lot of knowledge when it comes to the comics. So just in regards to sort of how these characters have transitioned from the pages and from the panels onto the screen, what have been your thoughts over the last few months?
So I would say, you know, one thing that really stands out as far as like from a holistic standpoint is we're getting like kind of early, you know, more like green, more wet behind the ears kind of characters, right? We're getting those versions of the characters as opposed to in Marvel, you know, in the comics, often what will happen, you know, or at least sometimes you'll have a character come in kind of looking like they're already established. And then, you know, they'll do their thing, and then we'll get later on and dig into their backstory at a later date. A really good example of that would be, for example, America Chavez, because America Chavez made her debut, you know, in the Vengeance storyline, and America Chavez debuted actually as Miss America. So when she hit the scene, she was already, for lack of a better word, she was a badass. You know, she came in, she could fight, she was strong, her powers are developed, she had her skills. Whereas, you know, we're kind of seeing, you know, the characters kind of have to develop. You know, we saw her in Multiverse of Madness, where, you know, she couldn't even use her powers at will. You know, so that's a very, very big departure, you know, from the comics. You know, I guess kind of just, you know, I to go down the line, per se, I would say, you know, starting with, let's say, you know, Shang-Chi. So a big thing with Shang-Chi was, you know, first of all, starting with the appearance, right? Shang-Chi's appearance has been updated, you know, significantly. He's got the cool red dragon scale armor, you know, that's functional. Whereas Shang-Chi, you know, was a product of the 70s Kung Fu craze, where Bruce Lee was, you know, really big and popular and whatnot. And that was Marvel's attempt to capitalize on that. And his outfit really reflects it, because his outfit reflects what was cool in those movies at that time. So, you know, with Shang-Chi, he had, you know, the red robes and like the flowy arms and like, you know, kind of looked like a little bit of like Bruce Lee, but with long hair, and, you know, also kind of like mixed with, you know, those the Kung Fu movies with the really bad dubbing. So it's like, they're like Tiger style and their mouth keeps going. You know, those movies, that's really what you saw, you know, with Shang-Chi, you know, kind of ripping off that whole vibe. So, you know, from an appearance and from a thematic standpoint, it's nice that it's been updated, you know. So he's been updated to a more, how can I say it, a more modernized take on that character, right?
Didn't he also star in the books? Didn't he star alongside a lot of MI13 as well?
Correct.
And at the time, so I'm the only one here that's going to be able to do it. Well, actually, I'll say that, I'm not sure. But at the time, yes, good on you, jolly old chap. You know, it was all that sort of stuff, weren't it? You know, it was all very kind of typically English, wasn't it? Along with typical sort of, you know, kung fu master.
Yeah, and you know, and that's kind of the unfortunate side. A little bit of it is, you know, whereas it was a little more kind of funny and just kind of a joke with that English side, compared to the takes or the interpretation of an East Asian person by Marvel at that time was a little bit more on what you might call like a little bit of a racist side, a little bit more of the stereotypical side. You know, you had Fu Manchu, which Marvel totally distanced themselves from and deleted, and China, you know, when they first heard that they were even going to do Shang-Chi as a movie, there was a big uproar because of the history, that was tied to that. So, so you've seen that updating, and actually that's kind of a little bit of a theme we'll talk about as we get into some other characters here. That is a modernizing and updating of these characters is really good. And in the case of Shang-Chi, they got rid of Fu Manchu. They merged him with with the Mandarin, and they basically made Wenwu his father. So that was a big update, for that character, and definitely a big transition, because I know, as you were talking about just a little bit ago, I mean, the theme is really transition. I think whoever came up with that, I don't know, whoever decided they were going to take the credit for it or not. I know you guys kind of weren't sure who was going to do it.
Actually, here I got a comment from RMC here. He says, it was me that called it the age of transition and expansion. Whole MCU is expanding, and so many characters are going through a transition. Winter Soldier, Captain America, Hawkeye, Black Widow, Thor, etc. I really like what Martin had to say.
Yeah.
So RMC's taking the credit for it.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Well, yeah. So he couldn't have put it any better. It really is, because there's a bit of a torch passing, right? You have Iron Man, who's no longer here. You have Captain America, no longer with us, as far as on the moon or wherever he is. They've just I love how they've just literally deleted him with no other explanation whatsoever.
Oh, it's so ambiguous on where he is.
The most ambiguous character transition ever. So you have all these characters who those roles need to be filled. You have Falcon stepping up. We're not 100% sure who's going to fill that Iron Man role. I mean, spiritually, so far, it kind of seems like Doctor Strange, because he's kind of, more on the organizing thing. He keeps tabs on everybody. He has the ability to kind of jump from place to place pretty quickly. He has the resources. So he kind of seems to fill that role to some extent. But, then there's, you need a tech person. So is it going to be Ironheart? Are we going to see a mix of Ironheart, Shuri? Who's gonna really step up and fill that role? So that still kind of remains to be seen. But that's another transition.
Is even Banner going to help fill that role in some ways? Because he was pretty close with Stark in the MCU and was pretty in depth in the Stark technology. So even Hulk could help that. We still have the Hank Pym there as well, and Scott Lang also, who could all kind of tag team that together. And when they finally do bring Reed into the 616 in the MCU, he can go full on, because it looked like in 838 he did succeed on the Ultron protocol. So
yeah. So continuing on with that, that kind of that transition, and then also the expansion theme. We have all these different characters also being added. So just kind of finishing up here, I guess with Shang-Chi. I mean, we have that. He's expanded now, but then also comparing him to his prior comic iteration, it is interesting to see a greener, Shang-Chi, because again, like I mentioned before, Shang-Chi is shown to us as he's master of Kung Fu. That's his thing. He's a master already. Whereas Shang-Chi, yes, he's a master, but he's kind of hung it up for a while. He hasn't really fully embraced it. He hasn't been Shang-Chi with the 10 rings who can now battle, planet-busting threats. He's only been that for just this one movie, and we saw that transition happen. We saw that grow. So that was really cool. Another thing there, and this will probably be the last thing I go on Shang-Chi before I keep going. But one thing that was really interesting about that, the comparison of the comic Shang-Chi to the I guess MCU version is in the Dan Slott story, Spider Island. I don't know if you guys are familiar or you've read it or whatnot. Really great story for those watching. If you haven't read Spider Island, or if you want to get into comics, it's a really fun story. Essentially everyone in Manhattan, due to a nefarious plot by the Jackal and the Spider Queen, ends up with Spider-Man powers. So now everyone, you have bad people and good people with Spider-Man powers. And obviously you can imagine the mayhem that would cause if all of Manhattan's running around with Spider-Man powers. So Spider-Man now has to come up with an edge for himself. And who does he turn to? He turns to Shang-Chi in the comics. And Shang-Chi, being this master, this true master of Kung Fu, he breaks down Spider-Man's powers and abilities, thinks about it versus his own Kung Fu and what he's learned and what he's mastered, and he mixes it into the way of the spider. And then creates, essentially, with Spider-Man, a whole Kung Fu style specific to someone with spider powers.
Yep.
So, like, the Shang-Chi in the MCU, he couldn't really do that yet, I'm pretty sure. You know, I don't think he's at that point of mastery and of experience, but the Shang-Chi in the comics, you know, really could.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if we could see that maybe in one of the future Spider-Mans, that crossover, maybe Spider-Man 5, maybe Spider-Man 6. At some point, though, hope to see that. And just to go back on the tech piece and mention some of the players, RMC says they missed the boat big time with Hank Pym, and definitely in the MCU. We got some glimpses, but there's still a lot more they could unpack with him.
They should totally put him in like a Fantastic Four movie like in the past, or they should also just do a Hank Pym and Goliath movie with Lawrence Fishburne and just use the de-aging tech and just make him young again. Yeah, or a series.
Yeah, Disney Plus series would be great, and that goes back to our theory that they need to tie, you know, Fantastic Four and Hank Pym together. That whole accident back from Endgame back in the 70s that happened before, and that's how they got shipped off, and all this kind of stuff. There's so many ways they could do it and bring that through Quantumania just to introduce them to the MCU.
Totally.
Yep.
RMC says, great idea, Alex.
Yeah, I really like that idea too. Definitely. Let's see. So, you know, talking about comics to the MCU, you know, moving on to one of the more recent ones we just saw, you know, America Chavez. You know, first of all, I just wanted to give kind of Marvel their shout out for that, because I think, you know, that's really how inclusion should be done. You know, she in the comics is if in case, you know, people watching to know this or not, she's the first Latina lesbian superhero. And you know, the way they did that, you know, giving her her own due, giving her, you know, a feature in a major storyline, giving her the proper marketing, putting good writers behind her. You know, that's how in my opinion, you know, being a person of color, being from that minority background, I think that's really the best way to do it, rather than kind of having it piggyback off of, you know, a more established, you know, character. Like for example, I much prefer how America Chavez was done to how Ironheart was done. You know, Riri Williams, even though Riri is an awesome character, I would rather her have been her kind of, even though, and yes, she was inspired by Tony. I kind of rather her be her own thing, like America Chavez. And then just, you know, rather than it having to, because she exists by default in the shadow of Iron Man.
Yep.
And you know, I'd rather it be more like America Chavez. So shout out to Marvel for really doing that right.
100% agree on that too, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. So now, you know, comparing that, you know, again, comparing the comics to the MCU, in addition to the fact that she's a bit younger. In the MCU, the America Chavez is a little bit older, a little bit more of a developed, you know, maturely, you know, kind of person. So her power source, we haven't really gotten much of a background yet on why she has her powers. Really, they just kind of showed that they, you know, developed because you know, apparently she doesn't really like bees that much. But you know, seriously, it was a little bit kind of a there's a little bit kind of a backstory that we're going to need to dig into as far as in the MCU later on. But in the comics, you know, she gets her powers from what's called the Demiurge, which essentially is like the Phoenix Force, but for just planet Earth. And that is what gave birth to the Elder Gods. And I'm hoping that they'll mention that to some degree in Thor: Love and Thunder. And when we start getting into the Elder Gods and who gave birth to who and where these gods actually came from. But that's a piece of that, you know, was absorbed into America in her original home world. And that's how she ended up with the powers of, you know, super strength, flight, and being able to create the portals that she has, you know. So that's kind of a good, that's like something to look out for. You know, we don't know yet if that's going to be different or not, but just something to look out for.
I can almost see them tying her to the Beyonders, possibly, or even the Watchers, or something like that, because they mentioned that she was born outside of the multiverse. If I remember correctly. So there's something more to it, and I think you're on the right path there. But there's something going to be really unique about her that we're going to find out with America Chavez.
She could be born in the quantum realm too.
Yep.
Like that could be the reason why she has no variances, because there are no other versions of her. You know, she's outside of it. She's like smaller than it. You know.
You're coming up with a theories tonight, Alex.
Sorry.
That's why I think she's like Watcher, breed, wherever they're from, or Beyonder, or whatever they do to the MCU, because of that certain tie right there.
Right. Or maybe she was born in the TVA.
Yeah, that too. That's why I discussed it as well on one of our side chats.
Yeah. So, I'm not going to stick too much longer on America Chavez, but another thing that they kind of did, another inclusionary thing as well, was they had her have two mothers.
Yep.
Which was cool. I definitely am a big fan of when Marvel opens up to all these different races, ethnicities, and creed, and I always try to shout them out when they do it the right way. So moving on to one that I really was looking forward to talking a bit about, Kate Bishop. So Kate Bishop, I think, was really well done in the MCU. She also was really well done in the comics. Very, very, very happy with the way Hawkeye played out. It kind of pleasantly surprised me. I went in with kind of low expectations. Excuse me. I went in with low expectations. I didn't know, exactly what they were going to do. Hawkeye's not exactly my favorite, although I do have some big moments where I do, respect Hawkeye and things that he's done, sacrifices and things that he's made. But for the most part, he's not really a character I follow too closely. Although for those at home, if you really want a great Hawkeye story to learn, read not to learn, but just to enjoy Matt Fraction's run of Hawkeye is probably, you'll enjoy that, even if you don't even really like Hawkeye that much and you just want to try to check him out. Definitely a run to check out. But, getting back to Kate Bishop, now comparing her origin to the origin we saw, or her backstory in the MCU, this is where, and this actually connects nicely to another conversation that was kind of popular in the MCU group very recently, which was, should there be basically the status of rated R content or MA or mature content in the Marvel Cinematic Universe? Does it limit creativity? Does it limit essentially what the product at the end of the day that we're getting from Marvel? Right. And I think this actually, when you compare Kate Bishop in the comics to Kate Bishop in MCU, I think you do start to see that. And what I'm getting at with this is, in Kate Bishop's origin story in the comics, she becomes who she is because she was the victim of a sexual assault in Prospect Park. She actually was, in Central Park. I'm getting my parks mixed up here. I live in New York. So she was, walking through Central Park late at night and was attacked, and was a victim in that regard. And that's really what was the main driving force. She didn't really have much. She admired Hawkeye, but she didn't really have much influence with or interaction with Hawkeye early on, as they're showing her in the MCU, which is also another big departure. But this, but the fact that can't really be explored in the MCU, I feel, is a little bit of a limiting factor, and that's why I say that the mature or rated R or whatever content, I think by that being kind of subtracted from the MCU, or them be reluctant to lean into that, I think it does limit, as I believe Andy said, the reality or how real we can really show it, the real stories. Like, you kind of have more of these puffy, happy happy path stories, whereas life gets dark sometimes, and life is gritty, and life is real, and all of us have had our struggles, and all of us have had our ups and downs. And it would be nice if Marvel could reflect that that brutality a little bit of life, because it's real and we all experience it at some point. No one goes through life unscathed, and so in comparing Kate Bishop comics wise to the MCU, that's one thing right away that just glaringly stands out to me. I don't know how you guys feel about that, or if you guys knew about that or whatnot.
So I gotta comment here from RMC about the way they did Kate Bishop. He's the only thing they messed up was her fight with Fisk. She should have she shouldn't have beat him so easily. Should have barely made it out of the situation, only because of her inexperience, though. I think she's great and going to be even better, but that's my big complaint from the show. Otherwise, it was absolute beautiful to me. And then some other, agreed, RM, she should have, have gotten a real beating. So on that kind of stuff.
Hey, why do we want Kate Bishop to get beat up so bad?
Yeah, but and Roxy feels the same way.
I get it.
Yeah, but to go back, I can see why they didn't do the the sexual assault.
Of course.
It's not MCU SVU,
Right.
But they could do some things. They don't have to actually go to that depth.
Right.
I think they could do a better balance of, and they have shown some trauma very well in the MCU, and I think they need to find a better balance of it. But I think they can still, get some of the grittiness, get some of that backstory in without actually having to go full into that backstory. I just think they need to do a better balance of it, because we've seen some things in Moon Knight, we've seen some things throughout the MCU. We don't have to see everything. There can be some things left to imagination or some things implied without actually having to show it, though.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I love Hawkeye. I like, for example, there's some scenes for me that just they are unique and just stand out, like the car chase scene where Hawkeye. That's like I don't know if I've seen anything like that in any other MCU film, and that actually reminded me a lot of when Penguin was trying to get away from the Batman in the most recent The Batman movie. It also reminded me of when the Joker was trying to get away from the Batman in the Dark Knight movie. It's like the way that was shot and the angles. It was just it wasn't out of place. It almost seemed a little bit, but it was so good and it was so well done. And the rest of that show just flowed, and it was fun, and it was light, and had great action. So I love the show. Don't get it wrong. I'm just pointing out in the differences from the comics to the MCU that it does limit what you can do. It does limit the types of stories you can tell, and it limits your ability to kind of go deep. Now, whether that's good or bad, it's fine. I don't think that they necessarily should have gone that deep with that traumatic of a story, but they could have done other things, as you said, Jarian, that I felt.
And then a couple more comments here, too. Real quick, Alex. RMC goes, it would have been very bold to use that backstory, but might have been too big a risk for the show.
Sure.
It would definitely set a different...
Yeah.
It would have certainly set a different tone going forward. If you kick in straight with that, it definitely wouldn't feel the same, you'd imagine.
And then one more comment here. Someone says, 100% agree, Monty. Opens up possibilities for some touchy subjects. Don't need the R rating, but a bit more mature leaning wouldn't hurt. Don't want to alienate parts of the audience. And that's where I'm seeing that my balance thing coming from, because you're having all ages now watch the MCU, from younger ages to older ages. And so, yeah, I get it. Maybe Marvel could say, maybe we have two different ratings, in the content, and one, doesn't show it. Maybe one is more deeper into it. Who knows how they can balance it, but they're trying to balance that for all ages type of thing.
2 points. First of all, one thing they did miss out from the comics, which they should have had, was boomerang arrows.
I was gonna say that. I've been sitting here thinking that this entire time.
Yes, definitely.
But on a more serious note, where was I going? Oh yeah, so obviously with the upcoming Miss Marvel show, we're showing that we can go that way. It's going to be it's a U rated, isn't it? It's the lowest rating they can go. So it's almost like, well, okay, if you're going to go this way, why can't you go the other way?
Exactly.
Why can't there be some properties within the Marvel world that are that are, U-rated and absolutely friendly for absolutely everybody. A 6-year-old could sit there and watch it and enjoy it. And then there's some properties that you actually know. It's the same. It's the same in the books, isn't it? Though, would you give a 5-year-old a copy of, Deadpool,
Marvel Knights Punisher,
Deadpool Max, Deadpool Max?
Exactly, that's my point. So you wouldn't, would
Yeah.
you? But you would give them a copy of something different, and so there's different things. We've been to the comic book store today, and although my son he's 12, it's slightly different. Most things are okay, especially within comics. But I will always have a look. What have you picked up there? Oh yeah, that's okay. In the same way. Can't the MCU be like that when the parents go, well, hold on, let's have a look. What is that part of this about? I mean, I guess the problem is, as I was saying earlier, that the sequel to Multiverse of Madness is Miss Marvel, and the sequel to Miss Marvel is Thor: Love and Thunder, etc., etc. If they do have big what's the word I'm looking for? Connections from one to the other, and it's vital that you see every project. Then I guess that falls down. That idea falls down. But it's an idea where they could have some shows that are sort of good for everybody, and some shows that are actually these are the shows that only 16 plus one can watch.
Yeah, and even sorry, go ahead, Jerry.
Yeah, which I think we're going to see that with Deadpool, because I think Deadpool is going to be the first MCU R-rated project. But also, too, it seemed like with some of the elements in the movie, I think as they start going down the darker path in the MCU, we may see some more of that. I think that Multiverse of Madness might start us down that path, at least from the horror side of it. So we could get it from that aspect. And then RMC just saying here, I feel it's more the parent's responsibility.
Yeah,
it is.
Yeah. It is absolutely. I think so too. I think it's just because it's got a Marvel label slapped on it, as you guys pointed out. The comics is the same way. I mean, there are mature comics that you wouldn't give, and also like Up to the Parents is one of the best comments, because just because it's a certain character doesn't necessarily mean it's good or bad. Because like you have Deadpool Max, right? But then you also have Spider-Man and Deadpool, which is completely hilarious and lighthearted and not really that brutal. It's a little gross at times because Deadpool gets random body parts chopped off and grows them back, but it's more of a hysterical kind of thing. It's a funny thing. Whereas, in other iterations of Deadpool, earlier iterations, and also, Deadpool Max, stuff like that, you're seeing a lot more of a not so kid-friendly adult content, sort of. So to your point, Andy, I really agree with that. I think that we really need to be able to have that versatility within the MCU and open it up both ways, to have that content, so all the different types of stories can be told.
So real quick, Fred Carmichael has a main point here as well. He says the main headline phrase of Miss Marvel is "Every generation needs a hero," and I think that's Marvel trying to tell us exactly this. So that's interesting. Yeah,
that's a great take. That's a great take. I love that. I mean, I hope it's true, but I definitely love that interpretation for sure.
I feel like the MCU is kind of almost like the real world, and I hate to say this, but like with Marvel Comics too, like it should be one of those things where it's like, yeah, there should be things you may not want to show your kids, just like there are in the real world. Like, obviously you don't want to see the Punisher, beating up thugs and killing thugs, and show that to your children. But at the same time, a lot of people they can use this show, like Miss Marvel, as a way to get their child into something they love, which is Marvel. So it's kind of like a nice little way for a parent or even just a guardian, whoever, to take their child and say, hey, you might enjoy this, and share something they love together. A
nice transition.
Yeah, nice little transition.
And RMC agrees exactly. I'm going to use that as a way to introduce my daughter more. I've been getting her into stuff through Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, and I'm going to try to get her to sit down and watch Miss Marvel as well. So definitely transition and ways to get that in. So.
Yep. So just, in general, I guess, just speaking more general about the comparisons of the, the comics to the MCU, that's definitely another one is they're kind of going mostly a lot lighter in some cases with the origins and with the way that they introduce characters, stuff like that. I guess finishing up, Kate Bishop, there's just a couple of things like her mother was actually not close with her at all. I know that they fought in the show, but they weren't even anything. Her mother was actually not alive in the beginning. She was presumed dead at the beginning of, Kate Bishop's first kind of appearances. And then later on, we find out the negative history attributed to their family and their ties to crime and, the underhanded dealings that they had. So, that's kind of a big departure there in some ways. Echo was tied to Daredevil, not to Kate Bishop or Hawkeye or the Young Avengers in any way. So that's another big comparison there. Another one that I did like that they kept from the comics was the Tracksuit Mafia. That was definitely good. That was good. I like, who didn't love? Yeah, bro. Come on, bro. Who didn't love the Tracksuit Mafia, bro? Seriously. Like, I don't know anyone who didn't love those guys. They were just like great comic relief, but also like, semi-capable bad guys, I guess. They were fun. I'm glad they kept that, from the comics. Let's see. Go ahead.
What do you think real quick, just to kind of think here, if you think that maybe if DC and Marvel reversed, so DC was under Disney and Marvel was under Warner Brothers Discovery or whatever it's called now, do you think it would be a different situation with some of this content in these movies?
For Marvel or for DC?
For Marvel in this conversation.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay, so would we have seen? Yeah, probably. I mean, because we look at when you see like Peacemaker, for example. Peacemaker, I have to believe that would never happen right now in Marvel. Like the stuff that they get away with and they do in Peacemaker as a comic property, they wouldn't even touch that with a 10-foot pole with Marvel. Mm-hmm. So to that question, I definitely think we'd see some different things going on. I think they would have. They might have tried to lean into like a Deadpool type of into a Daredevil type of verse a little harder, and then you saw the problems that DC's having, so they would have to lighten it up. So they kind of swung in different ways. If you look at it, like Marvel has kind of swung more to the lightheartedness and the fun, good-natured side, whereas DC tried to do the darkness. Marvel was a lot more successful. DC was not, and now DC's swinging kind of a little bit more like Marvel, but they still have that bite.
Yep.
So,
and what's funny is,
so definitely then we have the Disney factor here. And go ahead, Alex, and then after Alex is done, I want to get 2 comments in here in the chat too as well.
I was just going to say, and what's funny about the DC thing too is that as a property with Peacemaker didn't really have a lot of like source material either, so they kind of had like a lot of different directions that they can take that character. They can kind of bend that character and make it. So even though like it's not actually originally a DC property, Peacemaker is. I think it was owned by Wiz Comics or something
Wiz
at
Comics.
one point. Yeah. So like even though it started out with them, over the years they've kind of just like used him as a side character in like stories like Crisis on Infinite Earths and just random things throughout stories. So they can kind of make that show however they want with DC, and I think that's kind of why it kind of succeeded almost in a way.
Yeah.
So a couple of chats here. Yes, definitely parents' responsibility. I think as parents, we know that would be suitable for children. My youngest doesn't watch Marvel because I know it's something he could cope with. It's not something he could cope with. Although he has started watching Spidey and his amazing friends on Disney, whereas
Great
Xander,
start.
as you know, has seen it all except Deadpool. And my son is like Xander as well. He's seen pretty much everything except Deadpool. And then RMC has a comment here as well I wanted to get to. My nephew has autism and Asperger's, and we've gone to every Marvel movie ever. MCU and Sony both. It's tradition now with Marvel at the root. There's things I don't want him to see still yet, but as he gets older, it's fine, just like the real world.
Yeah. I just real quick, I just wanted to just say how much I love that, it's become like a family thing. Whereas like, when I grew up, Marvel was like, comic nerds, and kind of some people liked it and people liked the X-Men shows, and it was like either boys or nerds. Like, that's kind of the audience of comics. And now it's like, you have all types of people from all walks of life, like enjoying it as a family and also enjoying it, as adults and enjoying it as kids. It's really great.
It is great. Have you seen, I don't know whether it's 21 or 22 Jump Street, I'm not sure which one it is, but with Jonah Hill and Channing Tatum, and they go to the school, and he says, I can't remember which one. I'm sure it's Jonah Hill says to Channing Tatum, no, put your bag, both straps.
It's 21.
Yeah, 21.
Yeah.
Says, put both straps over. He goes, that's cool now. And Channing Tatum's character says, no, that's not cool. Like, you've got to do one strap.
One strap.
Yeah, that's it. And he's getting one strap. And he's like, no, both straps is cool. And he goes, oh, whatever. And he goes with one strap, and he gets over there, and basically they all take the mick out of him, don't they? For having one strap. And he's like, but hold on, this used to be cool. And then he like bullies some nerds, and they're like, nah, man, that's not cool. And like, wait, this used to be cool. And he's like, wait, comics are cool, like, and all this stuff. He's like, it's all cool now, isn't it? Everything's cool now.
Absolutely.
So that's funny how that's changed. But also, like you were saying, Monty, as well, and now Lisa and RMC have both said that it is a family affair. We watch it is absolute tradition. Like every Marvel release, we all go together in this household. There's me and my wife and my two sons, and we watch all the shows together. Premiere day, like we'll watch them all together. It is a tradition. I'm not sure whether that's existed before. I mean, I don't remember sitting doing those sorts of things with my parents.
That's a good point. I mean, Marvel is now, that's what got the world record or whatever. It's the longest continuous story ever told, both in written as well as on screen.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's
come here. Go ahead, Alex. I'll comment.
I was just going to say real quick, it's funny that you say that too, because I know a lot of people that aren't really interested in Marvel, but you find that right character that interests them, and then suddenly they get drawn in. Yeah. So it's like, I find that with family, with friends, things like that, I just have to find that one character. Like recently I was talking to one of my buddies and I started talking about Gore, and he was never interested in Marvel until I started explaining what Gore the God Butcher was in the new Thor movie. And then suddenly he was like, oh, well, that sounds pretty interesting. Tell me more. And I was like, oh, okay. But I think that that's what you kind of almost have to do, is you have to find that right character to kind of push it along for some people.
Yeah, agreed. And that also plays in well with somebody that we've already seen tonight, only on video. But Paul Scardino with his Funko collection, we know when we spoke to Paul about his therapy, what he does for a job. But the Funkos, they transcended just being a collectible item and actually became a way of breaking the ice between him and his patients. They found a Funko, a character, like you was just saying, Alex, a character that they had an affiliation to, or a bond with, and that kind of broke down that barrier between Paul and the patient, and that kind of in the same way it can link people together, can't it? It can link families, so okay, it's not everybody might like Moon Knight, but if somebody likes Moon Knight here and this person doesn't, it's still Marvel, so there's a link. Yeah
Coming here from the group, the right entry point.
Exactly.
I want to circle back to Fred's comment here, because about the James Gunn conversation. James Gunn definitely shined with lesser known characters, and I don't think he'd want to do a big household name, although he does seem interested in Harley Quinn a bit more. Which, if you look at his track record from the DCU and the MCU, he's kind of taken the lesser known characters, because the Guardians weren't a big household name.
True.
You watch the cartoons or the comics, you know who they are, but they weren't like big mainstream people, and neither was, like you said, Peacemaker or that kind of stuff. Either what he's doing on the DCEU side, so or even the Suicide Squad, even stuff he's done. So,
but what's funny is they've taken that title, Guardians of the Galaxy, and they've used it as like a means to introduce characters like Adam Warlock, which are instrumental in the comics. Huge characters. So it's funny, like, that's probably a character that the public may not know so well, but like now everybody knows who the Guardians of the Galaxy are. So
yeah.
I love that. I love what he's doing.
Yeah. And another one here, I went to most of the films in the theater, but for me, I didn't get super excited about the MCU until Disney Plus series. Long format is so much better for story and world building, which is interesting because Disney Plus has that platform, and it seems they like to paint themselves in the corner, whether it's number of episodes or the length of episodes in some cases. And yes, they can do that world building and tell the story, but they need to be more fluid with the number of episodes and the length of episodes. I feel sometimes they come up short in that aspect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's Seb, by the way. So how you doing, Seb? Good to see you.
Yeah,
glad to have you on.
And then another comment from the group: lifelong Marvel fan, but I didn't really like MCU until Winter Soldier. Then I was sold.
Interesting.
Yeah. Money. What else you got, mate? Have we got anything about any other characters transitioning? Because we can't be here all night, I'm afraid.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I guess the last one I just just because it's personal to me is the Illuminati. I just loved seeing the difference in between the way those characters were really worked. I mean, but really honestly, the where it really shined for me was kind of the similarity. Because the similarity of the comics and the Illuminati in the MCU was kind of incompetence, really. Like we have Reed come up and smartest man in the world. The first thing he does is give up Black Bolt's power, and then what is Black Bolt's first thing that he does is he tries to yell with no mouth and blows his own brains out. It's just this ridiculously comical kind of scene, but it's actually not too far off because the Illuminati made some huge blunders.
They're arrogant too.
Out of their hubris, exactly. So for a perfect example is after the Kree and Skrull War in the comics, the Illuminati went to the Skrulls and were like, "Hey, listen, don't bring that stuff over in our yard." And they try to read them the riot act and lay down the law and say, we're tough and we have all these powers and we can do yada yada. And then what did the Skrull do? They're like, oh, cool, kidnapped them, tortured them, experimented on them, figured out how their powers worked, and you were able to use that to replicate to make advanced super Skrulls. And then that's what they use to now turn around and do Secret Invasion.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, which it's funny you mentioned that about the thing with Black Bolt, because I've when I watched that movie, I've heard people talk about that, but I'm like, Wanda can read minds. She probably knew what all their powers were before they even said anything. So we even directly after that scene, we kind of see her kind of do that thing mentally with Professor X. So it's kind of like one of those things. I feel like when she walked in the room, she already knew what was going on. She already knew what they were thinking, and she probably already knew, what they were about to try. Yeah. So I mean, I don't know, but I've seen people talk about that quite a bit, Go
on, Jarian, read that out because that goes in perfectly with what Alex was about to say.
Exactly. So RMC goes, also, they need to show just how powerful Scarlet Witch is.
Yes.
She burns through the best of the best without even batting an eye and barefoot. and remote control as well.
Yeah.
Right.
RC card mode.
She was through a Zoom session, pretty much.
VR headset.
Yeah,
And she didn't even have sandals on. That's ridiculous. But yeah, so that and then bringing it back to Illuminati, they also in the comics were they were the ones who sent Hulk off into space, and that ended up turning into World War Hulk, where Hulk came back, destroyed all of them, destroyed all their teams, and almost kind of destroyed the world, really. And it was a very bad time. So so it's not too much of a far stretch to think that in their arrogance, the Illuminati would make a big mistake. And I think that if we do see further Illuminati in the MCU, I think we're going to see more of that, in terms of them trying to do the best, trying to be out in front of these disasters, which is the whole purpose of the Illuminati being formed, by the way, in the comics, was to be out in front of disasters and world-threatening events, and then it kind of ends up falling apart.
So do you
they're
think
almost like their own demise, aren't they? They're the
own worst enemy?
Yeah,
Yep.
that's it.
So do you think that when we finally get Secret Wars, because we know with them mentioning incursions and everything's going to come down to Secret Wars, do you think it could be a possibility of 616 versus 838?
I don't know if it'll be. I don't know if it'll necessarily be 838. I think what they'll end up doing. I think they'll end up doing the battle world, and I think we'll end up seeing an incursion situation where, where one universe incurs upon the Marvel 616 MCU, and I think they'll fight it off, but then it'll fall apart anyway, and then we'll go into the battle world. I think they'll follow the comics in that regard, and then they'll really be able to explore the multiverse, but in kind of a like all-in-one contained area instead of having to jump from universe to universe. It'll kind of all be in one space. So I think that's what they'll go with.
Because they kind of set a tone here in Multiverse of Madness when you had 616 Strange versus 838 Mordo. And we know that 838 Mordo has survived in Multiverse of Madness.
Yes.
So I almost wonder if that incursion into 616 is going to be from 838, and then we get the Battle War. I wonder if that's going to the way it goes because of the way they set it up and the tone they're setting. Like even maybe 838 Mordo talks to 616 Mordo, because they did cut out Mordo 616 Mordo being killed by Wanda in the beginning of this film. So I wonder if there's going to be some crossover between Mordos there, and that's how that incursion into 616 is going to happen to kind of kick things off.
Yeah. I'm not sure, but obviously Marvel will probably end up anything we guess here. Marvel will end up going some weird, wacky direction, and the great part is they'll make it work. Like a lot of the stuff. If you told me that, like, oh yeah, they're like, if you told me 4 years ago, by the way, the Illuminati is going to show up. They're going to be there for like 2 minutes, and they're going to get absolutely bodied by the Scarlet Witch. I would have been like, that sounds terrible. But they ended up doing it, and not only did they did it, they made it in a way that I love that movie. Like MOM is one of my favorites now. Definitely top 10 for me.
I just think they set the tone for incursions between the Illuminati universe, but then also with what we saw with Clea coming to Strange, which I pretty much think he caused an incursion in the first Multiverse of Madness in the Dark Dimension.
Yep.
So it's almost like they're already setting the tone for incursions.
I also love that subtle little throwaway line about Reed's kids and Franklin Richards, and it just like in the back of my mind, I'm like, come on, Franklin, come looking for Wanda someday, come looking for some revenge on her, like that would be awesome.
The next chair of the Illuminati is Franklin, except now that Reed's dead in that universe.
Right. And Valeria, don't forget Valeria. She's smarter. She's smarter than him.
Yeah.
And then Andy, you had a comment you were about to say?
No. I was just based on what Monty was saying about if you would have said 4 years ago that this is what you was going to see. I think we can go back and say that quite a few times, can't we? I was watching Endgame just while I was doing some chores the other day, and there was that moment there where Tony he's speaking to Rocket, and he says, "I thought you was Build-A-Bear." And it's quite amazing, isn't it, that we've got Iron Man who's just come back from fighting Thanos with Nebula, and he's speaking to Rocket who's been hanging out with Steve and Natasha for the last 3 weeks, and you're like, that's incredible. And we think we sit here and we kind of go, oh yeah, I reckon we're going to go down this way, or we're going to do this, or we're going to do that. But like Monty said, Marvel do something weird and wonderful and unique, and we all go, oh yeah, no, that was much better than the way we
did.
What a surprise. The professional writers come up with a really good idea.
True.
But, one comment real quick here. RMC, he goes, World War Hulk, Secret Wars, Wastelanders, or bust.
Yeah, let's see it, and throw in.
Would love to see it.
Yeah,
and it sounds like She-Hulk may lead into a World War Hulk scenario, but not the World War Hulk that we know.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. Monty, you got any closing thoughts on how how Marvel have dealt with these new characters coming from the comics into the MCU in the last sort of 6 months or so?
Yeah, closing thoughts would just be, I love it. I love the direction they're taking. I love that they're taking a whole phase to transition and gear us up for the next. I imagine that Phase 5 is going to be hard hitting, lots of action, lots of huge events. Like they're kind of taking this to reset things, and then comparing it, to the just to the comics in general. I think that they have taken, which is in line with that. They've taken these characters to like a greener, newer part of their history, and then set them forth in Marvel. So we're kind of getting a little bit of a soft reset of the whole universe in a way, because you had at the beginning of the MCU Phase 1, you had Tony still figuring out his stuff. You had Captain America figuring out his powers. You had everyone kind of figuring themselves out as well. And then we're kind of seeing that again with a little bit of a younger spin on it. And I like where it's going. I think it's going to a good place, and I think that we're going to have a lot of fun here at the end of Phase 4 and going into Phase 5.
Yeah, I think that they're sowing lots of seeds, aren't they, for the future? They're sowing lots of seeds. They're sowing Thunderbolt seeds. They're sowing Secret Invasion seeds, Secret Wars, Midnight Suns.
I knew you were going to say that, by the way. It's not an episode of the Marvel D&T Evolution podcast if it doesn't mention Midnight Suns from Jarian.
or Ghost Rider.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, my Ghost Rider.
I really want to see him, by the way.
They're laying down the groundwork, aren't they? They're laying down the groundwork for the next sort of 10 years. And they're doing that in Phase 4, and that is exactly why it is a transitional phase from what we know to what we don't know, and they're beginning that journey now. So look, we better start wrapping this up because we've been on for 90 minutes, and people have got to go to bed. I know you haven't. So look, I think just in general, Monty, you're going to hang around now till the end of the show.
Yeah.
I think just looking back on the last year. I think it's been. I personally, just from my own point of view, I've really enjoyed this, and it's become a big, not just the group, but the show. Doing the show with you guys has become a real good part of my life, and a highlight of my week. Coming on here, and everyone knows in my house that we do it now, and everyone knows the routine, and I really enjoy doing this. So, and I think that helps. I don't know about you specifically, Jarian and Alex, how you feel, but I mean, it's been a great journey this first year, and I'm looking forward to the next one.
I'll give a comment real quick in before we go, Alex. Xander is still up watching. Good job. It's a school holiday. Go ahead, Alex.
I was just going to say, I absolutely love the podcast, and I love being able to share this experience with you guys and get to come on here and talk about things. It's always just great to get to talk about Marvel, and it's a really unique experience because we share this with people all across the world, no matter where they're at. And we always try to, kind of have the conversations rolling and try and talk about the things that are pertinent and going on. But, we love the questions, we love the discussions and all the theories that everybody comes up with. So they're always great.
Yeah, and just to echo both what you said, and just to add, it helps with just conversations in general, especially with my son, because he'll watch or he'll sit with me and ride shotgun while we're doing some of these, and we'll have conversations later about stuff and other things, and just Alex and I all like randomly would have conversations, the two of us, bouncing things back and forth too. So not only just having fun, but also making new friends, and being able to have these conversations and this interaction with people, across the U.S., across the world, and so forth. Because I'm in the middle of the U.S., Alex is on the East Coast, Andy, you're over on the West Coast of Europe. So and Monty's on the West Coast of U.S., Jamie's on the East Coast or West Coast of Europe. So just to be able to connect and have these conversations and to bounce things back and forth with each other is fun, and it's been great.
Yeah. Jamie, you got anything you want to say, mate, before we wrap this up?
Yeah, no, it's a good routine, be it from my side of things, be it taking part sometimes and watching sometimes. It's always look forward to Sunday, be it, as I said, talking or just on the other side, asking questions. Just, it's enjoyable.
Nice. Look, before we go, something not about the podcast. We have our group awards. So I forgot to announce the April group awards on the show. So we'll announce the May group awards on the show. So we've got 3 awards. So comment of the month is going to Mark Relaford this month for his money is great but nostalgia is better comment. So
man.
Yeah. So that was around. We was talking about toys being in the box, and Mark was saying no. We used to we've taken them all out and we've played with them, So I thought that was a great comment. Post of the month goes to Mike Sullivan for his No Way Home review.
Nice. Yeah, he's got a lot of great thoughts. I love reading Mike's comments.
Yeah, and it was there was a different spin on it, and I really liked the way that he gave the James Bond analogy as well, and said it would have been great to have seen all the James Bonds, in one movie. So that was great.
Yeah, you're right.
Oh, look at Monty's going. Did you, Monty? Did you hear the other week? Did you hear Fred's idea? This was on our Star Wars show. Did you hear Fred's idea? Because this nearly got comment of the month, but.
Okay.
Fred's idea about having in the same vein as Old Man Logan, but having an old man window as a mace.
Wow,
window.
I think I did read that, and yeah, that's brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant. Because he's already got that ornery, kind of gritty vibe to him, and then just adding the years and adding the bitterness of the Jedi falling apart,
and what happened to him too as well. So.
But he's not the type to let his skills sharp or not be sharp, so he'll be complete, on point too. So
that would be cool. That nearly got it, apart from the fact that it was to do with Star Wars. So.
Love that idea.
A member of the month, he's Antonio Nelson Ruiz. No, Antonio's been great this month. He's commented on everything. He's been putting his posts up. He's been really active. He'd come up with some really good ideas, and just something over on our Star Wars group. He's shown his talent off on the Star Wars group with the Hot Toys scenes with the Stormtroopers. If you've not seen that, get over on our Star Wars group and find his post on there. So well done to Mark, Mike, and Antonio. Well done, guys. And to get member of the month, you know, there's no prize for it. It's just bragging rights and a shout out here. But to get member of the month, you know, get commenting, get liking, get sharing, and just be creative on the group. Guys, it's been an absolute pleasure. This has been our longest episode for ages. But I think if any episode deserved it, it was our year
anniversary. Yeah. Great job, guys. You guys all give yourself a pat on the back. You've done a great job with this. Great job, you know, with the group and everything. And you know, it's been amazing. I look forward to next year.
Yeah.
And Monty, you got to come back on for Wakanda Forever because I have a feeling that our conversations that we had in the past is, you know, I'm gonna have to replace some of those clips because I'm hoping to see some of those things come to light. So
absolutely, anytime you guys invite me, I'll make myself available.
Yeah, no, definitely, 100% for Wakanda Forever, mate. Yeah, definitely. Right, let's wrap this up. Cheers, guys. It's been an absolute pleasure. Here's to the next year.
Thanks, guys.
Take care. Thanks for watching.
Why don't you tell them about the time we faced them?
All right. Well, as I remember.
At Avenger headquarters,